So hello and good morning, guys. Why am I always saying good morning? Hello and welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast, guys. This is me, Pascal Fleur. And on the other end, it is Steve Hall. Say hi, Steve.
Hi, guys.
I think the reason for why I'm always saying good morning is because that's how I introduce my client check-ins all the time. Basically all the time. I have my standard phrase, and that is like, Adam, good morning. Welcome back to your check-in. and I know that every one of my clients who's listening now is like, oh yeah, that's true. That's what he's always saying.
I think mine is something like, hi, thank you for your video check-in. And then something along the lines of, here are my notes, let's go through them. But I do that sometimes when I leave people voice notes. I then end up starting it like that. And I'm like, this is not a client. Why am I doing this?
It's also the same thing I do when I record a startup guide video. Like I find myself repeating that phrase as well, and then I come to the realization, oh no, it's a startup guide video. So welcome to your startup guide. But yeah, Steve, I mean, you're now mini cutting, right? How are things going?
I am officially 3 days deep. I'm giving myself an extra day, but it is Thursday and I started on Monday. I actually did, for people who don't follow me on Revive Stronger Instagram, you should be, but I did a mini cut day of eating. I thought it might be interesting to people. So I'm on around 200 grams of protein, 200 grams of carbs, and then close to 60 grams of fat to hit just over 2,000 calories, which for those who know what my maintenance is like a 1,500 calorie deficit, which if you equate that to like pounds lost, it should be like 2.5 pounds, but there's no way I'm going to lose that much. Like, I don't know why. Whenever I enter mini cuts, I never lose as much as I should, like according to what you think, which is the case for everyone. But I think I have somewhat of an adaptive metabolism. And I think I'm one of those people that just gets pretty stressed when they start dieting. Not that I feel stressed, but I think my body is just like, fuck you, Steve. So
funny enough, because this is something I said to one of my clients during this week's check-in as well, that even though that you may not perceive things as stressors, they still are, such as training. Most of the people listening to this, I would assume, enjoy training, but of course it's a stressful environment, such as, let's just take an extreme example, such as extreme sports, right? Where you're just doing dangerous and crazy shit. Of course, the body is in a really highly stressful state. At the same time, you are enjoying that because of adrenaline at the same time. But of course, this is stressful. It varies that when a boss shouts at you, it's stressful as well, and not in a pleasant way, unless you are a masochist or so, or that you are into that, when that people are shouting at you and angry at you or so. But anyway, I digress. But kind of stress is stress, right? This is always what we tend to say. Not fully in agreement with that phrase every single time, but most of the time. And thus, I think that even though that you may not perceive the mini cut as stressful, it's probably quite stressful for you.
Yeah, I think it was The Stress of Life by Hans Seil that Broderick recommended to me a long time ago. And I read that. It was one of the few books I've read page to page and fully finished, even though half of it I would say was not that interesting. There was a lot to take away from it. And the biggest thing I took away from it was that you don't even sometimes realize what is stressful. Basically, anything that takes your body away from homeostasis is stressful. So like being in a calorie surplus, that sounds really nice and fun, but actually being in a surplus is stressful to the body. Like, it doesn't want to be in a surplus. It wants to be maintaining weight. So yeah. It's interesting because even like, I don't know, having a coffee is simultaneously like de-stressing because it's really relaxing, but it's shooting up your sympathetic nervous system because it's caffeine and shooting all of that. So I guess training wise, like, it's stressful in that it's causing muscle damage and everything like that. But it's a lot of people talk about like, I don't know, lifting is my therapy and things like this. So I think it's weird. Things are like concurrently stressful and not stressful. And I guess bringing body fat levels down is somewhat de-stressing, but also stressful in some ways. Probably depends Anyway, what you're realizing is how complicated stress is.
Yeah.
So far with my mini cut, like training, what I've learned from doing previous mini cuts is just be really conservative, because normally you're coming out of a surplus, you're in a good place, you're pretty strong, and you just but you can't attack your first week like you might do during a gaining phase, because calories really do help recovery a ton. So I'm still nervous about some of my bigger lifts, like squats. I'm particularly nervous about like getting a bit shit, because they're just hard now with the weights I'm squatting. But it seems to be going okay. I'm not too nervous about any of my other training, and just making sure prioritizing that 200 grams of carbohydrates as best I can around my workout. And the rest of my meals are looking pretty clean, pretty boring. Fruits, protein, not much else.
That's a mini cut.
Yeah.
I mean,
I see people doing mini cut. I still see people, even fitness professionals, who are like, they should, I feel like they should know better, and they do mini cuts, and they're like, I kind of was on point this week, but I was out on the weekend and socializing, and like I probably was maintaining overall on the week, and I'm just like, that's not a mini cut. Like, mini cuts are just, I think we're both on the same page with it. We don't like clients to do them unless they commit to it and really give it their all. So
totally. If something comes up, like, I don't know, a wedding or a family occasion or something unpredictable, yeah, of course, then go ahead, right? But other than that, doing a planned refeed or so, at least in my opinion, this is not where what a mini cut should contain. And I think that a mini cut should really be go in and out as quickly as you can, and don't waste any kind of time in actually going back into your maintenance calories, because otherwise you could always then make the case of, okay, then do a conservative cut for like 2 weeks, implement some refeeds the same length without being as assertive. And I'm totally on the same page there.
I think there was a really cool meme by someone at RP. I think it was RP Mel potentially, and it was kind of like, I don't know if you've seen it, where they have like, it's like they say a sentence and then it's like, change my mind. And it was like, losing more than 1% of your body weight per week is reckless and not sustainable. Change my mind. And it's just like, it's completely true. Like, you can do that for a mini cut, and mini cuts aren't meant to be sustained. And I still see people, even like, that's one of the things I say people do a bit funny with mini cuts, is they don't really treat them as what I feel like they should be. Yeah. And then I see people doing like 10-week mini cuts. I'm like, 10-week mini cut? That doesn't sound that small to me. Yeah. That's almost getting to a traditional level of like length of cut.
Totally. And at the same time, it's just the rate of weight loss. Of course, it doesn't always show itself on the scale, such as in your case. I have a couple of clients where it was always like this as well. So don't get back to me on like, we didn't lose that amount of weight. No, the scale, of course, doesn't always reflect what is truly going on. But at the same time, you want to be in a deficit that is hard to sustain. It shouldn't feel comfortable. It shouldn't be an easy ride. I'm not the biggest proponent of that hardcore mentality of you always need to feel something. Like, for the best example is just a contest prep. Why would you make it unnecessary hard? And I know a couple of people out there who have that mentality of like, no, a contest prep needs to feel hard. Otherwise, you don't get the badge of contest prep. I don't know. I find that mentality a little bit ridiculous. Contest prep should always be as hard as necessary. You don't want to push it beyond that if you don't have to, right? But when it comes to a mini cut, it shouldn't, at the same time, it shouldn't feel like an easy ride. At the same time, I'm just thinking while I said it out loud, it's just, it shouldn't feel like as if you're maintaining. That's what I'm trying to say. It can feel easy still. I have it always like a deficit is always a little bit easier for me than something like a surplus. And I know a couple of people who have it the same way. But probably this has something to do with your mentality and the structure and the discipline you're bringing with it. But at the same time, a deficit, you should feel hungry at some times. You should probably be a little bit lethargic here and there, sometimes maybe even a bit moody, and especially in a mini cut, that should be an aggressive environment you're in.
Yeah, I think the thing I was thinking when you were saying that is kind of, and I know the conflict you were coming with there, it's kind of like as hard as necessary, no harder. Like, why make it harder than necessary? I know there's coaches, and it's like we all look at these personal trainers who shout at their clients and they make them super sore and they beat them into the ground. And we see this with, The Biggest Loser, and everyone takes the piss out of that. Yet there are thousands of fit pros and lots of them bodybuilders who, for some reason, think it's like super cool to push their clients into the ground, and as if that's a good thing. It's like, no. Like smart, like proper exercise selection, fatigue management, programming, that is hard coaching, just beating your client into the ground. I can give any client an 1,000 calorie deficit and take every set to failure and tons of volume. I'll beat them into the ground. That's not going to provide results though. So it's frustrating to see that sometimes. And it's a fine line.
Yeah, and especially like with the contest prep, because we brought it up as well. And I see it all the time that people are actually, I don't know, even proud of that, having pushed himself or herself to the stage suboptimally, but super, super hard, right? Like starving to death, doing tons of cardio. Mate, if you can have it the other way around while still bringing the same package, why would you choose the hard route? I don't really get it. And that doesn't even say that this is truly the better package you're bringing with pushing it out. It could even be that you're looking worse because the body is in such a bad and stressful environment. And maybe there was even muscle loss occurring and water retention along the way, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, while I can see where they're coming from, because it's an acute response they are getting when you are pushing hard. Of course, the body pushes back, and then you have kind of, I don't know, a satisfying feeling along with that, and you at least think you know that something is happening. But as we all know, cancer cells, they evolve without you feeling it at first, and when shit is real, then you feel probably the effects of it, right? And basically it's the same there as well when it comes, I know it's like a little bit absurd to compare that to another, but I just wanted to exaggerate my example here.
Oh, that was it. Cool.
Yeah.
It's funny when talking about contest prep. I was just thinking, actually, when I posted yesterday in our Team Revive group with No Man and Josh, shout out to both of them who are competing very shortly. I was like, you know what, it wasn't even like, I didn't feel the need to highlight it because I didn't think it was like a thing to highlight. But both of them, they've stuck to their cardio, they've hit their training sessions, they haven't binged. And I haven't worked with thousands of prep clients, but the ones I have worked with, for a client to binge, it's very rare. Like, and I've heard comp prep clients comp prep coaches who have been like, binging is just like a normal thing. We're all human. And I'm kind of like, that's not been my experience. Like, I think if you can manage things, a lot of them don't end up binging. I don't know if you've had that, Pascal.
A couple of ones, but that happened maybe 1 or 2 times, if at all 2 times in a contest prep. And most of the time it happens afterwards. And because this is something, especially if the client has never gone to those levels of leanness, sometimes they just have to experience that and they don't know what's about to come. You can prepare them as good as you can, but sometimes it's just happening because the body, when we take a look at something like the Minnesota starvation study, which is such a great resource to see what is going on with people who are literally starving, right? Some crazy things happen, and some things, it's so tough for people then to prevent that, because your inner instincts are pushing you at that point. And sometimes resisting that is especially after show, when there's not really a certain goal anymore, that is just a really tough thing. But most of the time, if it's happening, then, or if if it happened like once maybe, and then we could always say like, okay, what happened there? Can we prevent it in the future? Analyze the situation. And most of the time they also don't feel that it was a great thing because they just felt sick afterwards and stuff like that. But it hardly ever happens. And most of the time it's probably then something you wanted to say there, that when you push the body to extreme levels, unnecessary over a certain boundary, then it pushes just so hard back, and it's not always necessary. And the judges, it's this exact same thing I always bring up as an example with the body fat levels. No one freaking cares what your body fat percentage is. The judges aren't going around and be like, so did you do a DEXA? What did it say? Did it say 6%? Cool. Yes, then you're placing better. And the same applies to something like they won't go around and ask the competitors whether their contest prep sucked dick or whether it was just like a ride on a unicorn or so.
It'll probably show on stage which way it was, assuming they're in shape for the most part. Because, some people, you could have an easy ride and be that guy who is just way out of shape.
Yeah, and some people have to go there and have to go into really nasty levels. But that's then, once again, as we already said, you only want to go as hard as necessary. And if that's necessary to do like 5 or 6 times a week cardio and being on really low calories, then that's simply what you have to do. But don't go there if you don't have to.
I do want to actually say post-show is the time I've only had clients where they've generally had issues when that goal's removed. And quite often they've maybe had those issues in the past where they have had the binge eating. So I don't want to make it out as if you should never binge and that's wrong and not human. I'm just saying I think you can mitigate it most of the time or as best you can. But anyway, that's enough of random contest prep chat. How was your week going? I know you're deloading and you're starting your new mesocycle soon.
Yeah, super
you're feeling
easy.
like a good man, a new man even.
I'm so much more fresher again. And as you can see, I'm able to wear contact lenses again without any kind of issues. So last week I experienced a little bit of eye issues, and I would just say it was probably also down to the pushing of the training in conjunction with just being on low calories. Took me a while to actually get back on feeling fresh again. That's why I extended the diet break by 1 week. Just to really be on the safe side. We've discussed things with the planning moving forward that still allow, or from next week on, I still have 8 weeks to go. That is then 18 weeks of 16 weeks of dieting this year. Last year, as people may know, I dieted from August until November. And then it's just a really long time that I've been dieting for. Without actually stepping on stage, which was initially the plan. And because of that, it's just stupid then to push beyond that. It's about time to get in a caloric surplus until the end of the year. Conservative surplus, nothing crazy, still disciplined, being on track with everything. But yeah, gaining a couple of pounds and then actually digging for the next year. And it's just about goddamn time to be out of a deficit. And I think that the next 8 weeks I can still do a lot, right? It's plenty of time, but after that it's about goddamn time. Also just for Katie.
Yeah, so you can go out and enjoy some meals and you can be a bit more alert and energetic in bed.
It's crazy because we always have our D-days, so our dating days. I know not everyone is fond of the terminology, right? Charlotte. But yeah, so it was quite funny because I had a Subway sandwich and just around the corner there was a McDonald's. I haven't been to McDonald's since I don't even know anymore.
I don't know.
Maybe 10 or 8 or so. I really don't know anymore. But Katie wanted a McFlurry. So we actually
McFlurries are good.
Yeah, we actually went to that place, and I just remembered when I was young, it was the time when McFlurries actually arrived to Germany. It's crazy. That's how long it's ago, ever since I've been to McDonald's. So we went to that place, and the people hanging out there. It was crazy.
It's not the nicest.
But no, and I had the feeling that they really do enjoy it. I mean, I don't know how it is in the US. I have the feeling that McDonald's and drive-ins and all that kind of stuff is a little bit more the norm to do. Could be wrong. I have no idea, but this is the impression I have. But when it comes to Germany, something like McDonald's or Burger King doesn't have the best image. And yeah, going there just, I don't know, confirmed that initial belief I had about the people who are going there. Maybe it was also just the location, but it was crazy. But the McFlurry was good.
What one did you get?
Lion.
Oh, Lion Bar.
Yeah.
What? I didn't even know this existed.
I'm a huge fan of caramel, and that was actually really decent. And the ice cream, just as soft ice, is actually coming really close to the Danish soft ice, which I always say is the best ice cream there is. And
gelato, well, it's different, I guess.
Yeah, it's different.
Italians.
It's really different. But I would assume that in London there are some ice cream stores where you could get soft ice. This is the same.
It's like
what
a
you
flake,
can
99 flake thing in a cone. Is that right?
Okay, I don't know.
So like white ice cream, like really white.
Yeah, exactly. Like from I don't know what is
like an ice cream truck.
I think it's just made out of milk. I'm not entirely certain, but it just tastes amazing. And I just know it because in Denmark, the soft ice is just ridiculously good. Ridiculously good. And when you buy soft ice here, you can't buy it here because you are just like, I don't know, damaged for life. Because I grew up at the Danish border. I know what Danish soft ice tastes like. So true soft ice tastes like. And you can't actually buy it here because it just tastes ridiculous. But the McFlurry was actually quite similar to that one.
It's funny. I always think I haven't been to McDonald's in ages, but actually probably I have in the last few years just to get McFlurries. Because they're like 99p and it's like a whole decent amount of dessert. So,
and by the way, because I'm taking a diet break right now, and I thought this time, because the last time the diet break, I had a little bit of more palatable foods. This time around, I stuck with really just things that are whole foods. Basically, did a lot of potatoes, and people know how much I love potatoes with quark. It's the best. Shout out to Brett Hadley. And yeah, I did that, and potatoes are just amazing.
You season this?
What?
Do you season it?
No.
It's just because quark is like really plain, and then boiled potatoes, right?
It's so while I was eating that, right, I actually started giggling and said to Katie, like, this is the most boring food there is, but I absolutely love that, and everyone probably thinks that I'm totally out of my mind, but yeah, it is so plain, and sometimes you get like issues with swallowing it down because both are just so dry, and they you just get a cramp here.
I just can't fathom how it can be enjoyable. I'm just like boiled potatoes with plain quark.
It's the best. Hey, mate, and I said to myself, okay, the next time when I'm gaining, this is my carb source. And believe me, I had so back in the days, I already was struggling with getting on my fats. But when you're eating something like that, holy shit, you actually need to make a great effort to get to your fats, because your carb and protein range actually gets so high without getting in any kind of fats. And I think that the next time for my gaining phase, a carb source like this, oh yeah, I can smell the gains already.
And to reiterate for listeners, I guess, to make it clear, your enjoyment for that meal partly becomes because it's so satiating as well. Like that's part of the enjoyment, the fact it fills you up so much.
I think, yeah, probably, but it isn't like a satisfying or satiated feeling, such as being just super stuffed with palatable food. I have the feeling it's always like this. You can eat so much And all of a sudden, you're just super stuffed and up to the point where you're just sick, kind of, right? Whereas when it comes to something like that, you eat it, and at some point, it feels, I don't know how else to put it, but it feels that you're naturally satiated. It just is a normal satiated sensation you have without wanting to kind of eat more or overeat. And when you stand up, it's just like, yeah, I'm actually well satiated, but nothing crazy here, right? Whereas when it comes to palatable food, either you stand up and be like, oh, I could actually have a little bit more, then you stuff your face, and then you stand up and you're sick.
So
there's no middle ground there.
So it's like you don't, I mean, I think that's the point I was trying to get, was like, it's not hyper palatable to you. It's just like, it just serves a purpose.
Yeah. While being pleasant.
And how do you eat this? Just pour the quark over boiled potatoes?
No. So I have a small bowl in which I fill the quark into.
You dip.
And then, yes, exactly. I halve the potatoes. I always try to get bigger ones so that I can use them like a spoon or something like a chip or so, right? Dip that in and actually... Amazing. So we've actually covered that for the last 4 minutes. I'm out.
I'm just picturing you with a bowl of potatoes and dipping quark.
Talking about my potato quark fetish. But yeah, that's all I did for the last week. No, and at the same time, I'm actually doing right now my motorbike license and had my first driver's lessons, and that's just fun.
And Gareth is destroying all of our fun as well.
Yeah, it's just
Storm
ridiculous.
Gareth, not Greg.
There. No, it isn't. It isn't. And I'm quite happy that I'm not cutting here over the time where Gareth is around, because it just makes things so much harder to actually get the steps in right, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point where you're going to break your umbrella outside. That's how flipping windy it is at the moment.
Yeah, or to the point where you're jumping on one place in your apartment, or just taking in 1,000 steps while just going up and down your apartment.
Yeah, that's what I'm actually doing. I was just saying to Pascal off air, I'm ending up with like 1,000 steps left to hit, which my target's 10,000, which hasn't changed from before. I was just hitting 10,000 easily because I was going to the gym twice a day, and I realized how many steps I've probably got, like 1,000 or more steps just from walking around the gym when I had more volume. But because my volume's lower, I'm not getting as many steps when I'm walking around the gym.
Funny enough that you're saying that, because whenever I train in the morning, I have my step count with me, or counter with me, and that always requires like 1,000 to 1,400 steps when I'm there.
It's crazy to think that I guess I'm like searching for equipment, going up the stairs, down the stairs, whereas I'm not at the moment, I guess. But yeah, I'm jogging on the spot before bed to get my steps in. Oh, God, quite literally. Should we get to the questions? I feel bad.
Let's do that, because otherwise the people needed to listen to us 30 minutes long, just rambling. But good thing is there are now timestamps. So for the next time, if you just want to skip that part, jump straight to the questions. So Fernando has asked, if following the 10 to 20 sets per week for all muscle groups, so you consider secondary muscles being worked as a set, i.e. do you count 4 sets of bench press? Sorry, that is phrased a little bit off. He's asking, do you also count something like the anterior delts and the triceps that are involved in the bench press towards your overall set volume for the week, or is it just direct work?
So it's funny, because this is one of those questions that we need to have an FAQ for, because it comes up I see this question probably every week. How do you count them? So my general rule of thumb answer is, if it's the prime mover, count for it. So for bench press, I just count it towards chest as a general rule of thumb. But if you want to go into the complex answer, there are some people that have a bench press and they feel it all of their triceps and barely any chest. So you'd be silly to count that all towards your chest and not your triceps. Similarly to, I don't know, like a pull-up, some people feel lots of bicep activation. Even though you don't want to necessarily, you may well do. So if you're counting it as all back and no biceps, that might somewhat scupper the amount of volume you're trying to do because you're trying to work towards like a certain set number, and it's just becoming inappropriate because you're counting it kind of incorrectly. So my more advanced answer would be it's the amount of kind of count it towards the muscle groups that are being significantly hit. So for bench press, I very much doubt there's anyone in the world who'd bother counting that towards their, oh wait, he said anterior deltoids. So yeah, I mean, anterior deltoids, I don't really think about that muscle group too much just because it is hit so much during pressing. So yeah, I mean, my generic answer was count it towards the prime mover, and then my more complex answer is to individualize that, count it towards the muscle groups that you feel are significantly hit. And this is why for my clients, I'm very much asking them on a week by week basis and looking at their kind of programming. Which muscle groups do you feel like are fatigued? Which ones aren't? Like, where can we build volume? Because there might be one person who's doing a bench press and they feel it very much in their triceps. So we don't end up adding more kind of tricep volume to their week, but maybe some more fly isolation. And then there might be someone else who they feel it mostly in chest. So then they can benefit from maybe more tricep isolation and they don't need so much more chest. So hopefully that kind of explains my thoughts behind it.
Steve, I would like to actually like you to answer that question I have, because I have my take on that and I know that we are on the same page. But let's say the volume landmarks by RP, right? They all have a specific set target for certain muscle groups. And I've seen people, and I know also a couple of people who then try to program or come up with their own program and actually orient themselves on those set ranges and ended up with horrendous amounts of sets, but also exercise for one single section, and be like, how am I even supposed to survive that? Can you say something about that as well?
So it's like, can you give an example of that?
Yeah, for example, let's just say you do your upper body day and you orient yourself on the chest volume, the back volume, the rear delt volume, the side delt volume, the biceps volume, the triceps volume. Thus, you program or you take in all of those exercises who hit that particular muscle group exactly, right? And let's just say the delts, the side delts have a recommendation that is just arbitrary. I don't know them from the top of my head, like 6 to 24, right? For the entire week. And because they think that they have then to directly hit them with all of those recommended set numbers, they program like that there are 2 tricep exercises, for example, to actually get into the range of 6 to 20 or so, right? Biceps exercises to get into the range. And of course, when they are progressing the weeks via set numbers, that increases even more and makes makes one session even longer. I don't know if you now know where I'm coming from. Otherwise, I will just give my take on the matter.
I can see if I can try. I think in those sort of situations, if they can truly benefit from that, it may be that they're at a level of advancement where they need to think about having a higher training frequency, or at least for those smaller muscle groups like the delts, like we have discussed before, they can be hit with a quite high frequency and they can take a lot of volume. So if you're trying to get all your delt volume in 2 sessions potentially, and you're finding that you're benefiting from it, but it's just becoming like it's getting too high and potentially you're hitting like high numbers of sets where it's just seemingly your kind of individual session MRV is being hit, but through the week you're recovering between sessions really quickly, then potentially you can spread that volume out more. And then I think it's just a case of, and maybe I haven't touched on your point, but the other thing I'm thinking of is a lot of people, it's like going by a calorie calculator and plugging in your numbers and be like, right, I need to hit this amount to bulk on. And you're looking at the scale's not going up, but you're like, no, I'm definitely in a surplus. This calorie calculator says, and you're just following that. It's like, well, just like training, if you're like, oh, I should be doing this many sets because in general, this is what people recommend, and you're doing it and your performance is going down, you feel like crap. It's like, well, listen to what your body's actually telling you. Listen to the data that you've got. Everyone's individual. You're going to have your own individual landmarks. So I don't know if I touched on the point you wanted to be raised.
No,
I imagined I didn't.
It's somewhat, but what I wanted to actually get to is sometimes some exercises give you a sufficient stimulus that already accounts towards your overall, let's just pick the biceps, overall bicep volume. What they recommend is, of course, just general recommendation. That doesn't mean that you have to put in all of the numbers. So let's just say, once again, the number 6 for biceps. That doesn't mean that you need to do all of those 6 sets in one giving session or 2 giving sessions or the entire week. Sometimes when you have a lot of pulling exercises in there, could possibly be that you don't need any kind of direct bicep work because you are getting all of the stimulus you need for that biceps already via your pulling movements. And this is something we've seen from good example, because it was so often discussed, is the volume study by Brad Schoenfeld, because they actually did like pressing movements, pulling movements, and they measured their triceps and their biceps, right? And it wasn't really that they did any kind of curls or tricep push downs, but still they seen significant growth in those kind of body parts, which just shows once again that you don't have to specifically do those body parts in it for itself. If it's necessary to see a growth, sure, add some direct sets and direct exercises. But what I like to do for myself and a lot of clients, for example, let's just bring up a normal example. Let's just say it's an upper body day. Have one bicep exercise, one tricep exercise, and one delt exercise, and start with something like 2 sets or so, and progress from there on a week-to-week basis, because that could be absolutely sufficient for you to see, just all the growth you would like to. And just recently, I once heard as well, the goal isn't the most amount of volume, but the goal is the least amount of volume where you've seen the best amount of growth.
No, I agree with that. I similarly, for like isolation movements, often just add like 2 sets. One for me, like the anterior deltoids is a really obvious one that oftentimes doesn't need any extra volume and generally might not even benefit from it. And for me, for anyone who doesn't have lagging glutes, I don't tend to like hip hinging and squatting. I mean, you get so much glute activation to isolate them further. Some females obviously really want big glutes, and some guys who have weak glutes potentially, but a lot of the time that's sufficient.
And if you're just then programming all of the exercises for all of the recommendations, your sessions will be absolutely mind-blowingly long. And this is where I find that most people also misinterpret what their general recommendations are. That's not like saying you have to do all of them in the giving rep range, in the giving recommended set range, because that's just most of the time just overkill for many people.
Yeah, for a lot of people, they can't even commit to that much. Even if they might be able to benefit from it, they can't commit time to that much.
Cool. So let's move on to T Dollar. I would assume that he's a rapper.
T Dollar.
Yeah, T Dollar, bitch. So this is kind of a similar questions which Miguel and I had, but it's a different person. So who are your role models outside of fitness? And I would like to hear yours, Steve.
I think we discussed this off air before, didn't we? And I was like,
we did last
I would have really struggled with this question. I'm glad I wasn't on the podcast. It's actually a really hard one, because obviously both of us are oftentimes you look up towards people who are in your industry. And so we are working within the industry, and our hobby is like bodybuilding. So a lot of the people we probably take inspiration from are within the industry. So it's hard to pick people outside. For people outside though, I said to Pascal, and I would still say this, like both my parents, I look up to both of them in that, like they both have obvious strengths. Like my mum is incredibly like giving and really, really kind. My dad has done so much to like get how far he was in his career and worked incredibly hard. And I try and learn from both of them and try and as best I can to have the good traits from both of their personalities. Outside of them, I don't know. It's really hard for me to really think of anyone I particularly like look up to or praise. I'm sure if people were to mention kind of general people who are like, I don't know, good businessmen or like great people, then sure, I'd be like, yeah, they're great people, but I don't necessarily idolize anyone in that way. And same with my parents. Like I don't think about them every day and like, oh, my mum's such a great person, I'm going to be like her today. It's just, they're my parents, and I think they were good ones, so I look up to them in that way. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really. I struggle to think outside of that.
No, and I said it the last time as well. I couldn't really think of any myself, and I brought up someone like Ben Shapiro, but only because there are some character traits which I actually really admire. Not just character traits, but just like skills as well, which I admire. And I think that there are a couple of people where I'm just like saying I either respect them or respect what they are doing, respect some of their skills, or be like, yeah, something like that. That would be actually quite nice to have. But there's no one I truly look up to, because it's the same when it comes to, just because we are living in that realm, looking up to a certain physique or so. That is not achievable for me. No matter what, how hard I'm trying, no matter what I'm doing, the outcome will always look different. That's why, yes, sure, there are maybe people out there that are respect for what they are doing or some certain skills they have. But I think I don't know if that sounds cheesy, but you're always your own smith of doing what shaping yourself, basically, right? And I don't know, I find it hard to think about me chasing to become someone else, or chasing of trying to evolve the way that particular person did or so. There's no one and also because then you're setting yourself probably some boundaries as well, and you never know whether you can exceed them or not. I would always just go out there, focus on yourself, and then try to make the most out of what's given to you. And at the same time, just because you recommended that to me, at the moment, watching Leaving Neverland with Michael Jackson, and mate, I grew up with Michael Jackson, right? It's crazy when I was super young. I've seen concerts, like not live, but on television and stuff like that, right? And I don't want to discuss what was going on, etc., but I want to say that a star like this, are there even stars like this anymore, where people are just going absolutely crazy, right? And someone like that, he was a role model for many people, and I have the feeling that there's no one, or that it's kind of out of trend, kind of, to have role models. At least that's my perception. I could be totally wrong and living in my bubble once again. And in my bubble, no one does actually have true role models, maybe just inspirations. But back in the days, I think that there were many role models, and I can't even think of some myself. But because there aren't really any kind of absolute insane stars anymore, like legends, or just really few, in my opinion, I think that this hype and this mythical personality around that isn't present anymore. But I could be absolutely wrong.
And I think you brought up a good point with Michael Jackson, in that you don't always know the person like you think you like. I don't think many people thought like Michael Jackson like that, and those who had him as their role model, I would assume now don't, because everyone has their positives and their negatives, so it's really hard because no one's perfect.
I do remember that people always said back in the days that there was a scandal about him and children and all that kind of stuff, and they make it out to be as if it's a new discovery or so, which it isn't really. I do remember when I was little that everyone was saying that he's a child molester and all that kind of stuff. Don't you remember that?
I didn't really. I don't know if I didn't follow him that closely. Okay. I've never been that much into music.
That was in the media as well. That was in the media as well. And it was, I don't know if it really was that present that they came out and talked about it, or other kids came out and talked about it. I don't know, because I was too young and probably didn't really understand what that actually means. But I always knew that people were talking about that, or that he was known for that. And now this discovery, this documentation comes out, and is as if it's an absolutely new discovery. I'm not entirely certain. Thus, I'm not entirely certain how the people who had him as a role model, whether it shaped it or not. And let's be real here at the same time. I'm not saying that these people are lying at all. Not saying that if that or when that happened, totally sorry for them, for their family, what this caused and all that kind of stuff. Not really happy about that or seeing or hearing something about that. But at the same time, let's be real, documentaries always report in an extreme fashion. They always want to be controversial. And at the same time, their main intention is to make money, right? And this, of course, draws in the more controversial something is, the more extreme something is, the more attention it also gets. And we know it from documentaries such as with nutrition. Tell me one good nutritional documentary that is out there that isn't kind of dogmatic or working with extremes. Like, okay, this is what it is, right? And not in another way. And this is something that I think when you watch documentaries, you always have to consider and keep in mind that it is mainly entertainment and with the intention of making money.
Have you seen The Pursuit of Happiness?
Yes.
Will Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness, role model. Fucking awesome.
Yeah. That was
insane.
That was
I love that
really
film.
emotional movie. Like honestly. But yeah, I mean, where we ended there, I mean, documentaries, this is actually, always keep in mind when you're watching something like that, its main intention is to entertain people, and that is, it can't do that when it's just like plain and boring stuff. It has to work with extremes and controversial stuff as well, because its main purpose is, after all, to make money.
Next question.
And that's why,
I could talk. That people just need to go watch it. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's.
I will skip the next one because it's from Anonymous. How does Wesley respond so quickly? Because Wesley knows when the videos are coming out each and every single time. I told him when we are releasing our videos. So he sets an alarm and is always there. So Tyler asked, if you could have one lagging body part and one freakish body part, which one would they be?
Oof. Do you have one off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Oh, go for it.
Back should be the freakish body part. And I mean, it should be a serious kind of body part, right?
Well, you're not going to say your penis.
No, I'm not going to say my penis, but more so when it comes to lagging body part, I would probably then say like something such as my forearm or so.
Just tiny forearms.
Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, the back should be freakish, lagging body part. It also depends on what we mean with lagging, right? If it's just like a normal calf development, I would be absolutely happy with that, because so many people actually just, don't have the calf genetic, and no matter what they are doing, it always looks normal and probably thus lagging.
I was going to say lagging calves is just such an obvious one to pick. It's just no brainer. When I think of a freakish body part that I immediately want, I think quads. But it's I'm like, in day-to-day life, when are you showing off your quads? Like, I'm not really going to get much for that. So I think back, shoulders, that sort of area, that's something that would, a freakish back would be epic. I always
think about when we are talking about freakish body parts, of course, Tom Platz with his quads, all right? But besides that, Ronnie Coleman's back. It was unreal. That is, I don't know, something like that is just like, where people are just like jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
Weird. I definitely wouldn't go towards like chest. I don't know why. Back.
No.
Shoulders.
No. Yeah.
Maybe arms. Like, that's pretty cool. Massive arms. Chest.
Yeah. A bag. I think a wide, thick bag is just absolutely impressive. I don't know why, but it's just like, you can have a lagging chest if your back is making up for that. Yeah. right? But the other way around just looks a little bit off.
Yeah, that would
Like
look really
super
like,
huge titties, but super small back.
You would, as a man, look a bit feminine potentially.
Yeah, don't know. So yeah, I know someone. He is actually quite known in the German industry, who has, when it comes to his abs, they are just like super blocky and super huge. No matter how high his body fat percentage is, they are always showing. And even when he's quite lean, it's just like even too much already. You know what I mean?
Like as if he's had plastic surgery there.
Yeah. But I can say that he didn't.
There are people like Jared. He's someone, he just always has freaky abs. And I can't remember his name. I can't even remember the name on Instagram, but he was Jeff's client, teenager. Reminds me of Jared. He's very jacked. I've forgotten his name. Absolutely. But he always has freaky abs. And I'm just like, these guys, like, they don't even, like, I think he even got cramps in his abs. I saw on his story. And I was like, I've never cramped in my abs in my life. And he had like chunk of ab.
I think they are still aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, right? They are. What I'm more so talking about is just up to the point where you're just like looking at the abs and
something's off.
What even is that? I don't know. Right, and this is what I'm talking about. Because Jared and Kenyo.
Oh, that's the one
over on Instagram. Their abs are looking actually just like really symmetrical and just nice.
I can't think of his name, but I can think of his name, but not last name. He's called Rodrigo, and he's had loads of plastic surgery done, and he's had he's had his abs done, and it looks like off. You're just like just don't look like you should have these abs here.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I've never seen that, to be honest, but I can imagine that it's just looking a little bit soft, not really like blocky hard abs or so.
He's had like muscle implants. He's had calf implants. He's had his face completely redone. He's an odd looking fella.
I mean,
but he likes it. So
exactly. Whatever makes him happy, right? Don't know. Some people actually turn themselves into cats.
Oh my gosh, there's some freaky transformations.
And I don't know, lizards and stuff like that. So whatever, right? I think that then doing something like a butt implant is actually quite harmless in comparison to that. But anyway, Alex is asking, what is the importance of a high sodium intake and how much is too much in relation to one's body weight? I think that you're the right person to actually answer that, because you were talking to Gabrielle from there like yesterday, and at the same time you had your experience with sodium intake and fluctuations there.
So sodium is a really interesting one, because I think a lot of people correctly reinforce the importance of sodium for people who are bodybuilders, weightlifters. It's important and plays many roles in terms of like just muscular contractions, in terms of glycogen storage, and all of this, and keeping us like healthy. But it also gets a bad rap on another side of being processed, in terms of it being higher in processed foods, and it can cause, and people are scared that it could cause high blood pressure, and that creates like I can't remember what they're called, like the Heart Foundation, to have like a low recommendation to what then you see someone like, I forget his name, the vertical diet, Stan Efferding, he's like big salt, like he just fucking salts everything loads. And in some ways I'm in the middle. Like, I don't think you need to be going crazy with your salt. I don't think you want to be restricting it needlessly. And I think it comes down to the fact of, when you're in the gym, do you feel like you're having good contractions, you're getting decent pumps, and you feel decent? You're not cramping excessively, and you're not feeling dehydrated. If that's the case, you're probably consuming fine amounts of sodium, fine amounts of fluids. If you're cramping a lot, or if you have poor pumps or anything like this, then you're probably insufficient potentially on sodium, and you could do with increasing that. Most people who don't have like predisposed like high blood pressure or anything like this can consume an amount of salt and sodium that they find tasty, that they enjoy. And normally the body is very good at containing it via homeostasis in drinking enough fluids to make up for that fat. It's only when you start kind of really pushing the bounds to extreme either way, such as someone starting a diet and they reduce their processed food intake and they start not salting anything, that they go really low, and then they potentially feel the ill effects from that. Or on the other side, you just start doing stand efforting and you used to not do much and salt everything to an extreme and you end up going the other way. So I think most people who are healthy, training individuals, you can salt meals to your taste. You'll end up drinking sufficient to balance that out via osmosis, because like Gabrielle was saying in the podcast, and I've heard this say, like with peak wheat, water follows solutes, so like the high blood pressure and everything, but it will equal itself out. So I don't have a recommendation off the top of my head to give the person. I would just say salt to your taste, and I think things will work themselves out. And think about if you're not getting like pumps, if you're getting cramps, something might be a bit off.
Should be the salt, man.
The salt, man. People love salt and sodium and everything like that. And potassium. I saw a big obsession about potassium recently, and I'm really glad what Gabrielle talked about, in that the body's very good at retaining potassium if it needs more from things. And like people...
And when it comes to something like a potassium intake and salt intake, if you go to extreme levels, that can be quite dangerous. So don't fuck it up. And especially like potassium, I mean...
You can cause yourself problems.
Yeah. I mean...
Too many
if you
bananas.
don't have... Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you're then supplementing on top of that, things can easily go off track there.
I saw a popular... I don't know where it came from exactly, but like buying low salt and kind of using that instead of salt. And I think it's a lot of doing things that the body takes care of quite well when you have a decent diet in place, from my understanding. And I've spoken to Broderick about it as well. He is on the same lines as Gabrielle in that regard.
It's just, once again, kind of finding a niche, finding something special no one else is talking about. I don't know, modifying it slightly to make it sound sexy, and then it's a thing. I don't know. People have survived until that point with lots less than supplements at their disposal. So, But anyway, last question from Seisha. What would the benefits for adding Olympic lifts to a bodybuilding program be? Are they useful for body recomp, providing there is proper technique in place?
My initial thought, and I'll let you more so go on this, is how many bodybuilders do you know that incorporate Olympic lifting in their program? Apart from Ryan Doris, who realizes he's not doing that via specificity and for good reason. He's more so just crazy and can be amazing at loads of things. None. So that kind of says my opinion.
Yeah, I make it really quick as well, because you could then actually delve really deep into that. But more so, of course, you want to weigh the stimulus to fatigue ratio, right? What gives the exercise you a what kind of stimulus does that exercise provide you to the amount of fatigue it produces? And when it comes to the Olympic lifts, because they are also so technically demanding, most of the time it won't give you that much in regards to hypertrophy. Of course, when you're doing like lots of Olympic weightlifting, such as like the genetically blessed guys, 6 days a week, twice daily or so, of course you accumulate a lot of volume at the same time, but it's not specific. And I think that for the time investment, you can get so much more out where with other exercises. And if you want to do Olympic weightlifting, I wouldn't implement both at the same time, because they, I think, kind of interfere with each other, because once again, Olympic weightlifting is quite technically demanding and still fatigues you. And then going in and doing a little bit of bodybuilding work just interferes with the amount of volume you can accumulate, because you're already pre-fatigued. Or the other way around, when you're pre-fatigued from the bodybuilding stuff, going then in and doing Olympic weightlifting stuff when you need to be cognitively at your highest because of the demand of technicality, is probably not the best trade-off to have for either both of worlds. So pick one, stick with those, and
Have you ever tried Olympic weightlifting, Pascal?
I did, yeah. I went to the club here in Berlin, TSC Berlin, and been there. But to be honest, I really didn't like the environment, because it was just, I think it was during a time where CrossFit actually got quite popular, and they've probably seen a lot of people coming to their training and to their club, which was an intimate and smaller club, still one of the more renowned here in Berlin, but still a small one, right? It's not that they had crazy numbers such as a normal gym or such as CrossFit places. But I think it was during a time where people were more so attracted towards CrossFit. They wanted to actually touch their feet with Olympic weightlifting, and thus they came to that place. And you had the feeling that they were quite annoyed by new people showing up, and they gave you that impression. And I went there like 3 times. I was just like, guys, if you're not happy with me, I didn't tell them that, but I thought like, okay, if you're not happy with me being here with a dude who likes actually that sport, come on, then no, seriously not. Then I don't want to be here as well. Unfortunately.
I never went to any clubs like that, but I did for a period of time try doing cleans, and I for a period of time tried doing overhead squats. And they were fucking horrible. Overhead squats. I have like no mobility up here, and I was doing it for bodybuilding. Like I legit, why the fuck would you ever do an overhead squat for bodybuilding? Like, you're limited just by, oh Jesus, it's just terrible.
There's so many more better exercises for your time investment, for the stimulus you're getting out of that, than doing the Olympic weightlifting.
I mean, a goblet squat's bad enough. An overhead squat is just the next level of shitness for bodybuilding.
No, so the answer is no. So,
but for fun, you could do some for fun.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. No, amazing. Steve, go ahead and plug the London seminar if you want to.
So, on the 11th and 12th of May, the amazing Gabrielle Fondero, James Hoffman, Mike Israetel from Renaissance Periodization will be coming over to London. Pretty central. We're in Westminster University, and then at City Athletic on the second day. Are we sold out of VIP tickets now?
No, we still have 5 or 4 left.
Oh, wow. We need to start pushing those. So get on those, because the VIP tickets that day it's just so much fun. You just get to get intimate with the guys, get to ask them your dirty little weird questions that you have, and have your selfies with them. And obviously me and Pascal will be there as well. And then the first day it's just going to be so much knowledge jam-packed. And what I really enjoy about it with them is that they're open to answering questions during their presentations, but it doesn't really take away from the presentation. And the information they present is always like new. Like, it baffles me every time that when I listen to them, I'm just like lots of it is like familiar, but there's always something like a new concept. I think I heard Mike in a podcast with Jan, who will be there, Jan Fries, and he was mentioning something that he is going to, for the first time, bring up in the London seminar. And didn't really go into it with Jan because he was like, I'm saving this. So it's cool that they do that and they have that. And I believe that's just because they're on, like, especially with Mike, he's very much like on top of the research and implementing things all the time, thinking about new concepts, which is really exciting. And then Gabrielle has just been doing new research with the gut microbiome. And then, I mean, recovery is just something that's talked about a lot, but I think a lot of people prioritize the wrong things sometimes. And so it'd be really nice to hear James really talk more about that. And look forward to episodes promoting each of them in the coming weeks, as they will be coming out on the podcast to further promote the London seminar. So hopefully I did a good sales pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can leave it here then.
And so general tickets are available, and VIP. I doubt all the VIP will have sold out.
Yeah, and because people said, and I admitted to that as well, we're doing a poor job in promoting something like Patreon. And we also now actually installed a PayPal donation if you don't like Patreon. So down in the description below, every support is highly appreciated. So give your thumbs up for the episode, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, hit the PayPal donation and or the Patreon donation, and
give us all your money.
Then we all are happy small human beings.
And if anyone has any ideas for like Patreon, what we could do to potentially further, like at the moment they're just paying to promote us and help us in that regard, which is highly appreciated, because doing the podcast and running it isn't free in terms of time or money. There's still costs that are involved with that that people might not realize. And we'd prefer to not be sponsored, and we'd prefer to have Patreon support. I think that's better for everyone. But if you have ideas for like things that we can do for you potentially, then suggest them. We're very much on board with that. And we have a growing team. Obviously, Ryan Solomon recently became an intern for us, or not recently, but more formally an intern doing some coaching for us. So
he's longer at Revive than I am.
Yeah, so he's been here a long time. He's been doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have any suggestions for that might incentivize you further to help support us, then let us know, because that would be cool.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cheers, guys.